My name's Oscar.
And my name is Cole.
And this is Who Would Watch This? Welcome to Who Would Watch This, the podcast where we watch a film, chat about the film, and then try and figure out who would watch this.
Today we're talking about Here, which currently has a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 6.2 on IMDb, and a 3 on Letterboxd. Oscar, what's the plot?
I like when you say it, it almost sounds like you've got more to say. Just Here!
Yeah.
A generational story about families and the special place they inhabit, sharing and love, lost laughter, and life. Guess even IMDb doesn't know what the plot is. That might be a tale. Carl, before we get into this film, I don't know if it's crazy, but should we go back to last week? Did you see who we thought we'd watch this?
When we ourselves were in a home.
Well, it was when we were there, but now we're here. Let's go back to there.
Let's go back to there.
Carl, it's Here.
It is Here.
Here has hit video on demand, and I am shaking right now. Why are we doing
Quivering in my boots, I am.
Why are we doing Here?
We're doing Here because we did Megalopolis and we did Joker, and it feels like this feels like a year of studio hits and misses, and looks like some directors really coming out to go, hey, what have I missed? Or what if I swung? And you're like, okay, well, let's see you swing, and you go, what an awful swing.
God, you really missed that ball, huh? You really missed that ball. Bobby Z for Here. Carl, what's your history with Bobby Z? And what's your history with the trailer for Here?
Yeah, well, I don't think we've done have we done a Bobby Z movie on the podcast?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think we have. Lucky Bobby.
Yeah.
Lucky Bobby Z. I love Bobby Z. Love his early work, that is to say.
Odd, okay.
What? Sue me.
Okay, well, maybe you didn't... Okay, well, he peaks at the terminal, but go ahead. Let's keep chatting.
Look, honestly, I think his run with Tom Hanks is fairly good, apart from... I was going to say Here, but we haven't seen it yet.
Oh, no, Polar Express. So we have done a Bobby Z film.
Oh, we have
Oh,
done
my
a
God.
Bobby Z film.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, Bobby's back.
Bobby's back in a big
in
way.
that case, I don't think we need to touch on it too much because I feel like we would have talked about Bobby Z. And frankly, we're reviewing the Polar Express later this month.
Yeah, God.
It's a double Bobby Z month.
Oh, my God. We're really Bobby Z-ing it.
We're going all in on Bobby Z.
Do we jump into Marwin?
Oh, Welcome to Marwin's a good one to do. What was that other one he did that was like a bomb? I can't remember.
The 300 or like Beowulf or something?
Yeah, he's done all of... Yeah, he's just done all of them.
Yeah.
Look, love Bobby. Love his early stuff. Obviously, Back to the Future. I really like Castaway. I think Castaway is a really good film. Death Becomes Her. You watched that for the first time this year.
Yeah, it was great.
So, look, he's great. And he was sort of at the forefront of Hollywood for a while, and I don't know where he is now.
Yeah. The millennium really hit him hard, huh?
Yeah.
Really hit him pretty hard. Carl, we've seen the trailer for Here. The premise of Here, if you haven't heard about this film, don't worry. It seems like it hasn't made any money. The hook is that it's all shot from one angle. So you kind of go, a whole life from one angle. That could be interesting. It is just a play, but hey, this could be interesting. Carl, do we think it's going to work?
No. I don't think it worked on the trailer. The trailer was like, look how energetic we are. And I'm like, I just don't think you are because you're barely giving anything away and there's clearly no plot here. There's people hanging out in a room is what I assume it's going to be. The trailer's even like a generational story. And then I think it shows some dinosaurs, and I'm like, okay, whatever. You're just doing, Bobby, you're just doing you. So I'm going to be all for it. I think the uphill battle the movie's going to have to climb is I'm all for this concept and premise. I'm just like, but just set it in a room. Why don't you just film the shit out of a room?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a single angle? I'm sure there's a real technological... it must be tough technologically to do it all in a single angle. That must be the thing.
It just doesn't look impressive. That's the problem. You're just like, wow, that is probably really hard. But it kind of seems like you just put the camera down and then just kind of made it all work.
I've set up a time lapse before.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's also hard too is they're really like relying on technology, but it's like, on the other spectrum of this is say something like Boyhood, where they just kept coming back to those characters every year and filming them growing up. That feels like really capturing a life on film. So it is odd that they're like, but what if we CGI'd it all and the camera never moved?
I feel like at the moment the technology like conversation is kind of all anti this, and it seems like on the trailer it's like we've de-aged Tom Hanks. That's right, we've stolen his identity, and now we have it on file. Like, I don't know if this really captures life, you know, because it just all seems like no one was really there in the trailer. It seems very much just like it doesn't even look real, really.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The room itself doesn't look real.
No.
So I don't know what
Which
is...
takes away from the magic of the room, really.
Built a room. Why? Because I think the budget's like 80 million.
Fuck off! It's not 80 million.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see.
That's just they're
Let me
stealing
double
money.
check.
You're stealing money. It's one setup. Sure, there's props and actors, but it should be a location. Who else is in it other than Tom Hanks?
My mistake, sorry. It has a $50 million budget.
Oh, modest and fair. But for one room, you know.
Still-
Well, Tom takes one.
Yeah.
Bobby takes one. And I'm sure, you know, the room's cost is, you know, that's a high rental.
The same room from Tommy. Tommy
here's the
Wiseau. This is his room.
Same room from that, and it's also the same room from Brie Larson's room. So, you know,
absolutely.
it's got a lot of, it's an A-list room.
And it's the same room from A Room with a View. So
Yeah.
this is
a titular room.
This is a great room.
Yeah.
Rooms don't get better than this
They
room.
don't. They really don't. Listen, the room's had some work done. Wink, wink. But hey, it's still...
In the trailer, the walls look very stretched.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not moving the way they
Great
used to.
surgeon, but, you know, that's the thing. Carl, who would watch
Apparently
here?
this room was unbotched.
Carl, who would watch here?
Look, I think this movie has been made for a very specific demographic.
Yes.
50-year-olds to 70-year-olds.
Yep.
And that's it.
I can't wait to see this just slowly make all its money back in like a 9-month period when just the whatever cinema you're at, just that little old one down the road, and it's going to be filled like Tom Hanks is a new vehicle about life. Maybe I'll give it a watch, and it'll be empty for most of its run, but God, it's going to make its money back, but so slow, so slowly. Who do I think is going to watch it? People that kind of liked Fast and Furious. That's just my vibe on this whole thing. You know, I saw the trailer. I think it's got the same demo.
Big fans of The Rock.
Yeah.
If they can't get into Red One, they're watching
Check out here. Carl, let's get into here. Where do you want to chat about? What do you want to chat about? Because I'm not happy. I'm pretty upset. This was vile.
I think we've got a masterpiece on our hands.
You piece of
No.
No.
Simply not. Simply not. What are we doing here? Why
Yeah.
is it like this? Why does it look like this?
What do you want to tackle first? Because I think there's although there isn't a lot, there's so much meat on this bone, but it's such a rancid bone, you know? It's filled with like pork meat and various chicken and a bit of like human, and it's all rotten and it's all gross, but it's all in the bone.
I think let's talk about our times. Okay. So
Okay.
let's here's what we got. So we've got the dinosaurs.
Yes.
Which was the thing that probably sold me the most in the trailer. Was
Yeah.
it being like, oh, we're spanning time.
Yes.
It's over and done pretty quickly.
Yes, I thought they'd flick back to the dinosaurs, just like, hey, this is where a velociraptor
vibe.
was. A little bit of velociraptor there. We should just jump into the dinosaurs. Is this just for the trailer and this just to set up, hey, time?
Yeah, I think the movie's premise does not work very quickly, and nor does it want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I think they must have gotten so, like, into filming and just Robert Zemeckis must have just been like, I want to move that fucking camera. Like, he must have just been like, them coming up with convoluted ways to act in that corner of the house, which once you find out the logistics of the house at the end, is not a natural corner you hang out in.
It's not an A-type room, okay?
No.
You got a kitchen, you got your bedroom, bathroom, and then maybe a living square. This is not a good. This is fourth tier living room space, and it's not a good room. Most of your events would not happen here.
No, absolutely not. I'm surprised they invite people around.
Yeah.
Like, it is... I gotta tell you, the rush I got finding out what was behind the camera. I spent most of my time being like, where the fuck are we? Are we a wall? Are we a backyard? How many people stand in front of the camera and be like, you got a good yard back there? What are they looking at? You find out there's a whole other room, walls, and then a door into the kitchen.
I think, and which is a shame, because I think it's a nicer space, because it actually goes into the garden. So I don't know what, again, spoilers, I guess, for here, but it backs onto a much nicer dining room, which I think would be much nicer for the whole film to be set in.
Once I found out the layout of the house, I went, Robin Wright was correct to hate her life here.
Yes, 100%.
She wanted more because this layout is nutty.
Let's get into the format of the film. We follow, I want to say, about maybe eight families or various times, and each one is like a vine. It's like 7 seconds, sometimes even less. And you get just little snippets of it. Go, okay, I'm like, for the start, I'm just going, okay, we're in 1865. We're at a plantation house. Oh, never mind, we're in the 1920s. Oh, no, we're in modern No, we're with Paul Bettany for a while, for a long time.
We've got, you've got the dinosaurs.
Yes.
Then Native Americans.
Yes.
Then colonialism.
I want to say you've got about sort of just the American Revolution.
Yeah.
So you got sort of just before that, so like 1850s.
Yeah. Oh, that was one of my favorite bits, was when the guy comes in and he's like, we won the war, and somebody goes, then what happens now? And it just like fades into whatever life they're living in the 80s, like being like, there's somebody on the moon. God, it's a groovy time. And you're like, so we're not going to unpack any themes? Or
No. We're not going to unpack anything. We've also got 1903, that was when the suffragette movement's happening, and the plane. We've also got the 1920s, the best time of the whole thing. We've also got just after the war, and we've got sort of Tom Hanks's life from probably 1950 to 2000.
we actually get more Paul Bettany than Tom Hanks, in my opinion.
I would say so.
I mean, and here's the thing. Tom Hanks's character and Paul Bettany's character, deeply flawed. They make a lot of bad life choices.
Yes.
And it affects everybody. Everybody else in their life, they all seem to make the correct life choice.
The correct life choices, and it's unfair that the film goes, we're going to focus on these two for the majority of it. Because they keep showing us 7-second bits of just like, hey, here's kind of a nice life. And you're like, oh man, it's outside and we've got more things to go. I can't ever connect to those characters.
Yeah.
No, we're going to follow the drunk, sad dad-father story. Go, oh, I don't want to be here in that room.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts is just the kid playing with toys and being like, Dad, did you ever take a life? And he's like, yeah, but I didn't see it. And give me a drink. Over and over and over again.
We also get like, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 scenes of a black family, which is totally just, I'm going to say it right now, it's a birthday cake and then a sad BLM talk about, hey, if a cop pulls you over, you're gonna have to do this stuff. And this is right at the end of the film. You're like, oh,
they should
man.
have never tackled this.
No.
It is the two writers, which is Robert Zemeckis and Eric Roth, should have never tackled this. They don't give it any time. They could maybe do it if they fleshed out any of the black characters, but they don't. To the point that it's kind of very problematic.
Oh, it's dreadful. It's just like, well, they have one characteristic, and yeah, we're gonna play it. They seem like they're a vibe. They're like, we just got a new Roomba. I'm like, well, let's follow this story.
Yeah, they are punished and they live through sort of a take on the Black Lives Matter movement and then COVID. And then the only happy family here that lives in bliss are the people that created the Lazy Boys.
Let's get into my favorite. Let's just jump into them, okay? How do you want to function this? Because the film just keeps flip-flopping to each different one. Let's focus on the sort of small stories that are given nothing, and then we'll talk about the Tom Hanks, Paul Bettany story, okay?
Yeah.
Let's get into the Native Indian one. That starts off, they fuck, and then they get themselves a bone necklace.
Yep.
So that's that.
And then that bone necklace goes onto one of them, and then they die, and it's buried in the backyard.
Yes.
Pretty compelling stuff. And don't worry, they only depict that in about as long as it takes me to finish this sentence.
Yeah, it really is, I reckon, about a minute of screen time. I guess just so, it is a bit upsetting, because I think they're doing, the whole film is kind of like, this is American history. And we've got the dinosaurs, because, Dedoy. And we've got Native Indians, we've got to throw them a bone. And then we've got pretty much just a very specific view on all of American history, pretty much from, like, the start of the Civil War till the end. And they are very much cherry-picking what they want to focus on. Similar to, like, what Forrest Gump has. I think Forrest Gump has like recently come into a bit of flack of just sort of not whitewashing, but definitely looking at history with a bit more of like a boomer sort of, hey, this is how it happened.
It's pro-American history.
Of course.
Just in the sense of being like, it's the can-do attitude.
Yes.
All of that
the
stuff.
American dream.
Yeah.
This will work if you just
Yeah.
give it a go,
However, I would then say on top of that considering this is the screenwriter of Forrest Gump, the leads of Forrest Gump, the director of Forrest Gump, producers of Forrest Gump, and the person that did the score of Forrest Gump, that Forrest Gump at least has a lot of real creativeness to the things that he impacts and what in American history touches him. Whereas it's weird to tackle all of history, but then still mainly focus on the section they did in Forrest Gump anyway in this film.
Totally. And just a sort of a sad relationship that really doesn't really... It's still, by the end, so one-dimensional. It's very odd. You just sort of like... You've seen this story a lot of times, just someone who has... If anything, it's just a negative for children's sort of movie. Because you're sort of left with this, oh, you had kids and then you have to stop doing your dream. And then you're just bitter for your rest of your life. And that's most of the film. Carl, let's get into the Roaring Twenties and the best story.
Pop the champagne. A couple's about to have sex on a lot of chairs.
Yeah, a lot of chairs. It's sass. It's fun. They're just doing Great Gatsby, and they make a chair. They make an Easy Boy, and it's somehow the best part of the film. I was trying to think why it is. I think it's joy, right? They have joy.
They're the only ones that like don't live and die in that house. Because this is the other thing the movie also tackles. This is a coffin. This film has so many people die in this house. At one stage, somebody says a joke that is deemed so funny in the film, it kills a man. And maybe it's played for humor. I don't know.
Oh, it's got the comedy tag, but this is not a comedy. I don't think. Just the tone is not comedic at all. It's just so sad and just sort of, but not sad enough for you like, oh, this is a sad film. Just like, oh, this is unpleasant to watch the whole time. But we get to the easy, we'll get into the lazy boy chair. They're fucking and they're making a chair. It is a shame because what's the grandiose theme of this film? Is it to chase your dream? Like, don't give up on your passion?
It's to never marry a Hanks.
Yes.
Heads up if you're married to Colin or Chet or Tom. Tom has a nice place in Greece, I hear.
Or a Bettany, you know? Yeah. You don't want to get yourself
No, you got to marry a Bettany.
Yeah.
You got to marry a Bettany.
Bettany got a bit screwed over with World War II, but Hanks has no excuse.
I love that they introduced him by being like, he's got a hearing problem. And then they're like, but it'll go. And then it's gone. And they're like, well, why'd we introduce it? So these two wives are like, he went into a really deadly mission and like 14,000 people died. And she's like, well, my husband was lost at sea. And they're like, yeah, well, my husband came back. So fuck you, bitch. Give us a lower thing on the house.
Let's get into, I guess, Paul Bettany's story. So he's come back from war and he's married his wife and pretty much, oh shit, they're pregnant. This is the central theme of the whole thing. Don't have kids. It seems like it ruins your life.
It does.
Yeah.
Paul Bettany definitely has one too many. I think he would have had a much happier life if he just had 2 kids.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, they have kids, causes them to get stuck in the house for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And then the kids just don't even really like him all that much, in
No,
my opinion. They never come and visit Tom.
Of course not. Because Tom's been bitter the whole time.
Yes.
It's like, I was going to be a painter, but then you guys got in the way. And I'll be honest, and Robin's like, I was going to leave this house, but then you kept saying that I'm not going to. And you just kind of think, guys, it just seems like your issues are too easily solved.
Yeah.
Paint on the weekends and maybe move out of your parents' house. It is odd.
So one of the things I thought the movie was going to do was I thought we were going to be seeing the entire film in chronological order. So I thought we were getting dinosaurs and then the Ice Age and then Native Americans and everything like that. I thought it was going to go in that chronological order. And we'd almost get all these pieces of vignettes, short films almost of those times.
Yeah.
So you would learn a character, emotionally relate to the character's time at that place would come to a close due to whatever reason, and then we would move on to the new inhabitants. But they just jump around pretty carelessly.
Yes.
And the mode at which they do it is using these white outlined boxes on the screen.
Yes.
And I hated this. I thought this was like probably the biggest detriment against the film
100%.
was this creative choice.
Because you essentially you start off with like the dinosaurs and then, just like a window bar on like a computer pops up and then we're like, this is the new scene. And because it's a shot for shot, they can walk through the scene and stuff like that. But I think it's just because surely it's like, well, if we actually aren't moving the camera, we're not making a film. So we actually need to do something interesting for the transitions. Otherwise, you're just left with nothing. So it's just so you can jump to the next scene without having like the whiplash of, oh, we're just in the next scene now. And because of that, it's just snail pace because no scene ends or finishes or starts. You can't just start with like there's a phone on the screen and then someone will pick it up with the hand. You're like, I guess we're now off this scene and now we're chatting to Paul Bettany.
I kind of thought it was them cheating, which is them being like, we're not really committing to it all being from this one angle because we've realized that's boring and it needs to be edited in a way that makes this exciting because the script's not particularly exciting, the characters aren't particularly exciting, and only goes for 90 minutes. So there's not really a lot for you to enjoy here. So I just thought it was very odd that they would even attempt to do this and then immediately find an out.
Because what would you do? Because if you just have a cut to the next scene, it's too much whiplash. You're like, whoa, where are we? What's going on? Because normally you'd have a camera moving and to play around with it. Anyway, it's just an odd solution for a problem they did not need to have.
Well, I just think then you can get really caught up in probably asking a composer to come up with the most interesting score that would create sound cues that would work in the way of making the editing not so jarring. I think there's moments they do like flashes of lightning and they do sort of interior stuff like with the rain coming in and that's that leads on to the birth. Like they do some visual things to try and tie
the
them.
scenes together. They do a literal record scratch, which I did, which was cheeky, but I kind of back it. At that, I was really grasping at straws because it was just like Paul Bettany's like, I'm a drunk and nothing, and then the record scratch like Madonna and the 80s. You're like, fuck it, it'll be fine.
The thing I wish that they had done was thematically join parts of the movie together. Because it would be like we're going into this person's life and then we're going to that person's life. And I could never really find the tissue that meant that's the reason we've gone back in time to this person now. There was going to be a lot more of like, this foundation here has caused... Well, they come in and they go, this place smells.
Yeah.
And I thought we were going to go back and find out why it smelt.
Totally.
And then they just don't do that.
No, nothing. It feels, and I think that's the main thing about this whole film is you're kind of like, why have we decided to put the camera right here? I just don't know. Because Ben Franklin's kind of given... Oh, we should probably talk about Ben Franklin. This film, like Forrest Gump, I feel like it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. Like when he gets the apple stock or he meets Elvis, you're a bit like, oh, haha, yes, that's history. This one's sucking all of like American history's dick the whole time. It is so pleased with itself. Anytime Ben Franklin's on screen, they're like, I might go and fly a kite tonight. Oh, that's pretty funny.
They then mock Ben Franklin as well at like a Halloween party.
Yes.
You know what would have been fun? Is if at just one stage suddenly they could all talk to each other via the house, like the lake house.
Totally.
So mid-movie, Ben Franklin was just like, I hear you, Tom Hanks. And you're like, whoa, what?
But like thematically, is it either love or follow your dreams? What's the theme? What's the connective? Or is it just, hey, here's just a bunch of lives?
I think the movie's saying there's no right way to live a life.
Got you. That doesn't work. That's
It's
not...
very vague.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly making a very powerful stance. Because I think at one stage they're just like, look at her. She left him and she went to Paris and she lived her dreams. But then she forgot about it anyway. And now she cares about the house. So what was the point? It's like, was he right to leave? Because he was afraid of taxes and now taxes are biting him on the ass anyway. Like,
because I feel like his daughter, she pursued a dream and then did not use her money whenever she wants to go traveling and enjoy life. So I think learn from your parents' mistakes.
Well, because they kept on also doing stuff like, oh my god, that plane is going to get you killed, and then the influenza kills this character in the biggest twist of all time.
Let's talk about the 1903 one. The guy's like, come on, honey, let me get my little child in my plane. It's the new thing. Everyone's flying planes around. It's the gas control that kills them. And then the next scene we see him in a coffin. So sad. But then it turns out they're wearing masks. Influenza on them. So...
And they definitely can't imply it. They need somebody to go, the influenza got him.
Here's the problem for the whole film. How much do you know about history? Because constantly I was like, ooh, I think it's the 1903, but it could be the 1920s. I had to Google a lot of the things as I was going along.
Well, I just was confused as to, because then we sort of lightly tackle COVID. I was like, why isn't the COVID segment intertwined with the influenza segment?
Yes. Just like, hey, throughout all of history, we all have diseases. Even the
Yeah.
dinosaur thing. Why don't we tie it all together?
Yeah.
Big mass things happen. You know, there's so much lofty ideas of like, let's talk about life and how things just kind of repeat itself and just, you know, you have to go with the flow. But it's not that. It's just mainly a sad relationship with Paul Bettany and his wife, and then Tom Hanks and his wife. And it's just depressing.
Yeah,
Why focus on this?
Because they've gone, let's do, like, I would say the Paul Bettany and Tom Hanks plot are very, like, intertwined, and they would take up maybe an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And everything else is about 25 minutes, which is so short that it makes you wonder what the point of doing the other stuff was.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying I like the concept of the scope that it wants to tackle.
Yeah.
But it's doing all of the past history events in such a light way without much purpose.
Well, all you get is just, hey, isn't this funny? This is how this thing came about. And that's all you're kind of left with. And you're like, oh, I did not need to see that from this perspective.
No. So, yeah, just a waste. Oscar, I would like to play a little game with you.
Yeah, hit me.
Obviously, this movie puts the camera in the house in between the lounge room and the dining room. Do we think the movie would work better in any other rooms?
That's huge. Okay, let me talk about this. Firstly, when I was watching this, I thought maybe the kitchen. I feel like maybe, I don't know, because then you got just a nice thing like, hey, let's just show some nice food, you know? And I just think, hey, I feel like life is always tied around, you know, food, making a meal together, family. There's a lot of nice themes in the kitchen. I think that would have worked a bit better. However...
And you could cheat and do, like, the dining tables in the kitchen. It could be one of those homes.
Yes.
So you've sort of got a two-format use of the kitchen.
Totally. And like, yes, you can't have a wedding or there's 2 funerals and 2 weddings in this house. I just think it's not the right...
Too many.
Go outside. Because Tom Hanks' wife... main issue at the whole film is just like, I don't want to live in this house. Your parents. I want to go make her own house. I don't want to be in this. In a fairness to her, yeah, it seems like every life event has always been in this house. She's not been able to leave. It's been an absolute nightmare for her. Carl,
she's right to want to leave.
Fair enough. Carl, other than the kitchen, where are you thinking?
I think the movie would be pretty fucking interesting in the bathroom.
Okay, huge. I also like the bathroom.
Yeah.
I think that's a top tier room.
I think you get to handle stuff like pregnancy and like shaving, showers, slipping.
Wow, you've really shot yourself.
Yeah,
in the
I have, absolutely.
Shaving was number 2.
Once I got past pregnancy, I went, "There's not a lot left." I think
we had 2. We had a stillbirth. No,
Yep.
sorry, stillbirth. We had a wet. What's it called? The water broke in the living room, so the bathroom's not the
I
place
think
to
you
go.
could still have like really good challenges of like context. So you could have like him coming in just before getting married downstairs, like in a tiz, and having somebody come in to cool him down.
Yeah.
Like those sorts of things where
You're just talking about a good film. You're just talking like, oh man, it'd be great if we could put the camera in the bathroom. I wish we could do that. Alas, we can only do it in the living room. That's how films work.
guess what? This is a big like issue. Is I think one of the big things that lacks in this movie is, as somebody who had to live with their partner's family for an extended period of time over COVID, no intimate conversations or interesting things ever happen in the lounge room. It's a big space. It is a public space. So a lot of the actual quiet, sad, emotional, and character development moments, it is not a natural room for those to occur in.
No.
And so the movie doesn't really do them. It's a lot of like, anytime they actually have to have an emotional moment, they need to go and stand with their back to the camera and look out the one window. So then we don't even get that.
It is upsetting because I feel like all the hard-hitting conversation they have is almost always out of nowhere. It's like, we need to talk about this. And you're like, that's not how communication works. This is not how anyone talks. It's all very lofty without having the backing behind it. So you're just left with these like melodramatic scenes of like, well, just break up. Like, it's fine. I've seen your life. It's done. You know, it's fine.
The kids are out. Their house sucks.
Yeah.
One of the enjoyable things about the movie was seeing just like inflation. They could have been like, I'm paying like $4,000 for this house, and by the end they're just like, it's probably worth about $40 million.
It's so upsetting. I think it's funny because we're meant to relate to Tom Hanks of just sort of like, money's tight. At the moment, mortgages are at 9%. I think because maybe I love you, Bobby Z. Sadly, has a lot of money. I'm not super empathetic to the person in 1960 trying to buy a house because at one point, Tom Hanks surprises his wife with like, hey, here's some plans. I know I didn't get that promotion, but one day we're going to build a house. It's a 3 fucking story house with 9 bedrooms. I'm sorry. My dream at the moment is to afford an apartment. And for this film to be like, we just didn't get the time to do it. We still could afford it, but we just didn't have the time. It hurts.
Yeah, the dad moves in when he's older and they're like, we're putting him in a public place. And I'm like, put him in one of the rooms. You got like 11 rooms up there. Like, why are you putting him right there?
It is upsetting.
Any other rooms you think it would make sense in? I think the master bedroom, obviously a great one. Even a kid's bedroom, I think would be interesting. And you know what? You can have a fun little... I am shocked that the movie didn't tackle putting a computer in the corner of that room.
Oh, right.
Why didn't it do that?
It's crazy they stopped because they flash forward to, I guess, 2020 because it's a Roomba. That was yeah, and they sort of stop at 2003 for Tom Hanks's storyline. But yeah, because constantly, this is such lazy filmmaking because you do have the little TV in the corner, and it's just like the Beatles are on the air. And I'm pretty sure Tom Hanks goes, "Well, they'll never make it," and it's just so upsetting. But yeah, you're right. Where's the computer? Where's the internet age?
Yeah.
I don't think Bobby Z cares.
I don't think they do, and I think there's an interesting challenge as well that the movie is trying to do in terms of set dressing and lighting and all of those things. But one of the things that also really bugged me about the set design is I think very clearly when they're only interacting with the first front third of space, the rest is green screen. Yeah. And they've clearly just frozen the image and they're just acting in front of it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, what's the point?
It's just kind of ugly. I know they're de-aging, and I feel like Bobby Z's main thing in the start of millennia, he loves technology and he loves testing it and he loves pushing the boundaries. And he's always done that for his other films. But I think back then it was a bit more interesting because it's like, well, there's so many limitations. We have to do a lot of things practically. And since the 2000s, he's gone full hog on all this stuff. He's always like, I'm going to try out the new thing and see how it works. And sadly, it always just looks a bit odd. Like the Polar Express is a bit weird. What was the other one he did? Marwin's always a bit...
Why do we think he can't do it?
I think because there's this lovely blend. Like Back to the Future has that blend of practical. And also, I think, I don't know, limitation-wise, he's almost got free reign. I don't think he's a very good writer, right?
No, but he doesn't usually write. I think one of the things I would say... his issue might be is he seems to be somebody who loves a smaller film, just in scope. Like, Castaway is a very expensive movie, but in the end, that is a movie just not about a guy on an island. Yeah. This is just a movie about people bumming around in a house. Welcome to Marwan's just about a guy playing with dolls. They're really small in scope. And I think he's not picking the right scripts to exercise expanding technologies.
Yeah, totally.
Because when James Cameron does it, he's like, well, I'm making a epic.
Yeah, planets. I'm going nuts. I'm going crazy.
Pushing the scale to as big as it can be to stretch the technology as far as it can go. But, I mean, even your casual Marvel show does de-aging on it of the quality of here. Yeah. So...
well, it sort of it almost goes. It feels like it's like an IMAX movie. Constantly, it comes up to the camera like, "Check it out! Yeah. Look at all the detail." I'm like, I don't want to see Tom Hanks at 16. That's gross. That's weird.
It was so off-putting. Well, why is that voice coming out of that kid?
Yeah, when it's him like twiddling his little legs, playing a block. He's like, "Dad, what are we gonna?" You're like, "Oh my god, Tom, why are you in the room here?" It's upsetting.
Anytime there's somebody old playing someone young, it comes off like a predator because they're like, "Ah, shucks, I'm one of you, aren't I?" And I'm like, "You're an old person."
Tom Hanks and his wife embracing when they're like, "We're just 17." I'm like, "Gross, you guys." And they're like, "We got pregnant." I'm like, "I'm so sorry, guys. You're gonna have to get rid of that fetus. It will mutate and kill." So you just want to get rid of that.
Do we think he had previous girlfriends, or this is his first, and that's the big issue of their relationship?
Oh, that's a huge thing. Well, let's get into their relationship. It shouldn't have worked day one because one, they get pregnant and it's like, well, let's throw away our dreams. It's upsetting. I get I'm mainly blaming Tom. He's the main perpetrator. Robin Wright?
Yeah.
Is it Jenny from Forrest Gump? Wow, what a comeback. And what a sad, sad comeback for this couple. It's really upsetting. I feel like the whole of Forrest Gump, you're like, would they have worked? And it's, no, they wouldn't have.
None of their relationships have worked. Out of the two of them, she's divorced him or she's died of AIDS.
Yeah, it's upsetting. Let's get into what Tom does wrong with it. He starts off, he gets her pregnant, and he's like, we're keeping the baby. Now he then goes, okay, I've got to get a job. Similar to what Paul Bettany goes through. Yeah. He just gets like an insurance job. He wants to paint, but he immediately gives up his job. I think that's fine. You know, it sucks, but that's just the life he's going to have to live. He is bitter from this moment on, and we are following him for the most of the film. Robin's main thing is she's like, I don't want to live in this house with your parents because, quite frankly, Paul Bettany's a lot. And your mum has been spitting on me in the kitchen. She knows where the camera is.
So fair.
She knows where the camera is, and she's doing it off camera. It's cruel.
Yeah, I don't think this was like the way to... I would just have loved it to have been more out of order so that we could sort of see Tom Hanks's relationship evolving while Paul Bettany's relationship is evolving.
You've got that already. You've got the elements to be able to go, hey, look, father and son, the mistakes repeat unless someone breaks the cycle. But no.
Well, it's also like Paul Bettany had a successful marriage with his wife.
Yes.
At least depicted in the movie over what we see.
Well, in the living room.
In the living room,
in
yeah.
In the
bathroom, we have no idea. He's shaving.
It's gross. It's just vile. But again, in the living room, they're a happy couple.
Oh, so many incredible poop gags you can do if it's in the toilet. I think it would be great for like...
Name one. What poop gag would you do other than someone shitting?
Sorry, so we'd be like, oh God, I'm coming as well. Just freaking out. No, both at the same time. Just in the middle of a hard-hitting drama. You know?
Bobby Z's like, I've got the technology. I need to test it out.
Do it.
Please let me test out this technology.
We've got more. More.
You wouldn't believe how much cum we can get out of a DH Tom Hanks. I gotta tell you. You'll think it's Chet. But it's not. It's Tom.
Tom, fill up this jug with water as to how much you think you would have produced as a kid, and then we'll just double it for the film. Things look lesser on film. You've always got to double
every
it.
cum shot, you got to double it. Okay, that's the rule of porn and this movie. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and action on here.
Oh, the movie should have also had a porn in the middle of it. Just somebody being like,
it constantly starts. It starts fucking and constantly cuts to just one of the most. And I've just got influenza, darling. And you're like, oh God, at least let me see you bone. But oh God, I do not want to see Tom Hanks and the DH one because they fuck on the couch. It's upsetting.
Oh, it is. And you know they turned the lights off because they couldn't get their faces to mingle correctly. They were like, oh, there's no way they're just going to be a blur or it'll swirl if two DH faces come together.
Clipping into each other. It's just off-putting.
So then they have more kids. They have to hang around the house. How sick of your husband's family would you be? Like, so sick of it.
So sick of it. And Paul Bettany is like and here's the problem with de-aging. I don't know how old it is. I think from about 40, he's a drunk and pretty abusive and just a lot.
Yeah.
And kind of traumatized, but not enough that you're sympathetic to him. Like, he just keeps going, you're nothing. You should have got you. You're going to regret that. Hey, don't paint. Does he ever say don't paint? I feel like Tom Hanks kind of gets a moment where he's like, hey, I'm going to paint, Dad. And Paul Bettany's like, good, great. That's absolutely fine. I never stopped you. Why would I do that? Go nuts.
That's a quiet activity. I like that.
Great.
You can do that in the corner. Or even up in your own room.
It'd be lovely.
That's a lovely, quiet activity.
Yeah, I completely support that. Quite frankly, most of your activities were just, shooting little rockets at me, and I got PTSD, and it was upsetting. So,
and I know you fucked on this couch.
Yeah.
That's gross.
It's a vintage couch.
And now we have to get a leather one.
God, it's such an upsetting scene when Tom Hanks is like to his wife, like, just get a new couch instead of moving out. She's like, I will. And then you see the couch, and people around and go, I hate this couch. And,
and then later he's just like, we're still financially recovering from the couch. And you're just like, fuck me, was the couch $1 million? What are you so upset about?
He's only whining. Tom Hanks's main, I guess, enemy in the film is just the tax man. I don't know what
a character arc. What a character motivation to be like, this is how thrilling the movie is. The lead character is afraid of taxes.
Capital gain tax will get him. He doesn't want to live his life. He's like, listen, if we sell the house, we'll have to pay gap. You have to pay that at some point. If you want to make the money back, you gotta pay capital gains. It seems like he's a tax dodger, and I don't. And I'll say this right now. And who would watch this? We love taxes. We love paying them, and we love people paying them.
I've never not paid my taxes.
I always pay for things in cash, and then get a physical receipt and go straight to the ATO.
I've given everything I've ever gotten to the ATO.
ATO, big fans of the ATO, and they're sponsoring this episode.
Absolutely, they are. Trust your government. You can log on to mygov.com.au in Australia, and you can do all you need to do.
You guys gotta link your services. Also, check out the inbox. It's always full of nothing.
You were getting so many confirmations of being like, yeah, didn't fill out your taxes from 11 years ago. You've got $6 to claim from that time you worked at Baker's Delight.
Please, we need to get this off the books.
He's so right to be afraid of the tax man.
Of course.
But what a downfall. My favorite thing in this movie is, frankly, it is the death. So I did enjoy certain moments. Like I liked when the mom almost died, and I liked when the guy had a heart attack. I like when they insinuated Paul Bettany died. I like the influenza funeral.
I like the influenza funeral. The only problem is it does it with like the modern day Paul Bettany and his friend. They tell him a joke, he falls over and dies with laughter, and then it cuts to the funeral. And I'll be honest, I just forgot what movie I was in. So I'm like, oh, they're having the funeral here? How inappropriate. And no, it's the influenza guy.
Yeah.
There's 4 deaths, and none of them hold any weight.
Wow.
You tell me a death that holds weight.
I gotta tell you, I really liked one main thing in this movie that I did really like.
Yeah.
Is I really enjoyed. There was a part where Paul Bettany's thing is drinking and complaining in that corner.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where it's probably the 3rd time he's done it or the 4th time he's done it after his wife has had a stroke, and he realizes that in the end there's nobody there to listen. And I thought that was we've repeated that moment. There's always been his son there to listen, and suddenly he is on his own, and all he's got is this bottle of scotch.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him give it up. And I thought that was a nice moment that was well laid out through the film, and it paid off, and that was a good little character thing for him. The second moment is when he starts to go deaf, and he plays a gag on Tom Hanks, and I thought this hit. I thought this really hit. And he just keeps being like, what? And Tom Hanks is like, oh, shut up. And he's like, I'm kidding. And then does it again and is also kidding. And I went, that's the fucking bullshit I will be pulling. Thank you very much.
Tom Hanks is like, fuck you, we're watching Jeopardy. He's like, all right, I'll watch Jeopardy.
Why'd their TV get smaller?
I don't know.
Why didn't they get a modern TV? Were they that poor a family?
No, because it's okay. Here's the thing: it's set in 2003, and I think it's a cowardly thing for the film to go, because the film's been very happy to go through all of history.
Oh yeah, so true. I didn't even consider this.
Yes, it's gone through all of history's big moments, and I feel like there's one thing that you never forget: where was Paul Bettany and Tom? Where were they on 2001? 9/11, Carl. Where were they?
2001 9/11 is how you want to voice that?
That's how the Americans read it. They read the year, then the month, and then the date.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never filled out a check.
There's also a lot of it really is a film made for old people, because there's a lot of things that I just don't know how it works. Because at one point, Paul Bettany angrily goes to her wife, she couldn't be a bookkeeper. Have you seen her checkbook? I don't know what the admin involved is in a checkbook. I don't know if you need to keep a good... There's just... Okay, we're talking checks. You know how there's a big check and you get the little bit at the end. Have you ever seen a check?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that just writing on that part?
Because that's your only bookkeeping, right?
Gotcha. That's your etiquette. Was that the etiquette of checks? You had to keep that neat?
Yeah. And then you hand that in, I guess? I
don't know.
Did you have a checkbook? I had a checkbook when I was a kid.
Checkbook?
Yeah. I still have it.
I wanted to get a checkbook because I think it's funny that it's legal tender. I think it's funny that you have to accept a check. Like, I think it'd be funny if I owed you money for like beer and I wrote you a check, because then you'd have to go to the bank.
Oh my god, I'm digging out my fucking checkbook. That's the downfall of you. Anytime you're like, oh, the hosting cost of this podcast here, I'm gonna be like, and here's a check, and wait till next week so it doesn't bounce.
I would love to bounce a check. I have no idea how you do it. I assume you have no money and you just write a lie on a piece of paper going...
Isn't it crazy? You could just lie. They'd be like, it bounced and there's nothing you can do about it. Throw this check away.
Yeah. What? No wonder things were better. No, like, of course, you had free money in your pockets. Is that why people didn't accept checks? Because it was just a piece of paper and a lie?
The other thing that I was like, am I out of the loop on this in terms of history? But when did ambulances exist? Is there a reason the kid calls the fire brigade and not an ambulance?
No, I think this is almost like a fun story that's just like, you should have called an ambulance. For some reason, you called the fire
Well,
department.
she asked for a taxi.
Yes.
So it's nobody's thought to call an ambulance, or is that how you avoided paying for an ambulance?
I'm assuming I don't know what the Medicare... Here's the thing. I don't know what Medicare was like in 1950, but maybe it's similar to now where you don't want to call a taxi in America because it costs money.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe? Yeah, it's upsetting. I guess the fire brigade... Is the fire brigade cheaper? Like, would they cost...
I don't know. Are they one that you don't have to pay for?
Well, surely, I guess...
Because you have to pay for an ambulance, but do you have to pay for the
Maybe
fire
you don't
brigade?
really pay for the fire brigade. I've never seen someone like, yeah, they're not going to put it back on fire.
But they
They
seemed...
bounced a check from me. How dare you? Boys, get your napalm. We're going to throw it at the house.
They've got another hose that's liquid fire, so they can just replace it. They're like,
You
turn
never-
it from water to fire. They're just blasting it.
I would love this app is not labeled. He's like, left or right, I can never remember. Oh, I hope they didn't bounce that check.
That they seemed apt at delivering a baby.
Yeah. The fireman, I literally did think, because where do we think this was? Because I was just like, oh, it's like a nondescript town. This firefighter was so New Yorkian that I was just like, oh my God, are we in Brooklyn? Like, what's going on? He rocks it like, boy, you did well. Here you go. Come down to Sal's and get yourself a pizza or a slice. And you're like, oh my God, where are we? This is also, we pan out where we are. It's such a nothing town. What are these, like, weird towns in America? It's such a nostalgia thing. It's like the weird town in, like, WandaVision.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely like, I love them because they definitely wanted to cover American history. And I bet they even considered being like, what if it was Ben Franklin's house? So that we could see the inside of his house.
Yeah.
And then they would have been like, no, but that would stand forever.
Yes.
Like that would never become a suburban house. So it has to be the house across from them is the famous Ben Franklin house.
Yes.
And it's like, there's just a lot of holes to jump through.
Oh, totally. This whole film, I feel they're like, okay, we actually can't do too many interesting things in this house. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a house. So they're like, okay, we can do the lazy boy. That is such low stakes and just a fun factoid, but it would not raise the price of this house.
I wish it had ghosts. Wouldn't it be fun if you died in the house, you stayed in the house forever?
I felt like watching this film, I was staying in the house forever.
I felt trapped.
Yeah.
I felt very trapped. We then have this scene where Tom Hanks brings out a cake for her 50th birthday.
Oh, this is just... And at this point, I'm sort of just like, I'm sick of this relationship. It should be done. Carl, hit me.
Yeah, so she just starts crying, being like, I have been pigeonholed here, and now my kids are living a better life than me, because I could never have it. She starts to cry, and Tom Hanks keeps on just being like, blow out the candles. Just blow out the candles. Nobody wants to hear this. Blow out the candles before you keep thinking about how awful a husband I am. Blow out the fucking candles. Blow out the candles or I'll hit you. You didn't hear that. The rest of you didn't hear that. I swear to God, blow out the candles or I'll beat you. I'll beat you as soon as they leave. You didn't all hear that. I definitely didn't say that. I'm sorry. I'm getting caught up in the heat of the moment. I'll blow out these candles.
I'll blow out the candles and then you. Yeah. Oh.
And it's a great cut to her, this guy just being like, your boats, they're not tethered anymore. And he's like, who the fuck is this?
This is crazy. They're sitting on the new couch that she's bought. It's hideous. We get introduced to, I think his name's Gus or Glenn or
well
Gil.
done for you even knowing.
Gil. Because Gil's my third favorite character. Because he sits them down. I'm assuming that Tom Hanks' wife is fucking Gil. Because Gil kind of goes, listen, I'm not a therapist. I'm not really even licensed. I'm kind of just a guy your wife pays to chat to. Tom Hanks is furious. He's like, we can't afford a house because my wife's been paying you $200 a week to tell her shit. And he's like, so here's what I'm thinking. You guys shouldn't be together. Tom Hanks hits him with a fuck you.
Yes,
which is
fair.
Yeah.
Which is, have a conversation. Like, one of those, I would be annoyed just being like, divorce me then. That is the cheaper thing to do than paying this motherfucker to come and tell me. Like,
Gil's so slimy as well. He's really chewing the scenery. He's laying out on the couch. I
feel like Tom's come back from work, and so that couch be sticky. Tom's just like, this room smells, and not the way it used to smell.
From that, I guess the guy died here. Are we assuming that's what the smell was? I mean, they've had about 3 funerals in this home.
Did you get the jump scare when they brought a mirror into the fold and you got to see what was behind you?
Yes, I did. It was upsetting because I feel like something was off about the mirror and just perspective, because it seemed like it wasn't a reflection, because I guess it was like a CGI mirror. I just think the angle was slightly off. It was just strange. Anyway, we get one scene where they're like, here's the dining room, and we get one scene with Tom Hanks and her chatting in the dining room.
Well, they're chatting in the dining room, but over the mirror.
Yes.
Being moved through a different story.
Because they do a square over it. Which
is, I was like, but just have a mirror be moved in your story.
Yeah.
You know? Like, or just whisper over the audio of the camera. Like, I don't need to see it. But, I mean, it was nice to see what was behind the camera. As I said, I was deeply obsessed with it I think they definitely put that in there because they said people really start getting frustrated 50 minutes into the movie because they want to know what's behind the camera. And they're like, then put in a mirror.
Put in a mirror.
We haven't shot the black family yet, so they can put in the mirror.
The black family, is that all their point is? Just to bring a mirror into the foreground?
Oh, they got given the worst plot. Like, it's just, it ain't like... all of the diversity inclusion in the movie feels deeply offensive because they're just not characters.
Well, because it's even worse than that, because essentially they're going, hey, how good's American history for white people? And you're kind of like, I guess it was good. I guess these stories are interesting. But if you really look back at these history, it's not clean and cut like you presented it. It's quite upsetting.
Do you reckon they considered when they were done that they realized do you reckon when all was said and done, do you reckon they realized that Tom Hanks's family never interacted with anybody of color and they needed to put in a family of color in the film?
I don't think it was a reshoot. I think they would. I think at the start they're like, we'll have one black family, and that's how and as a history we've regressed. And you kind of go, oh, that's the worst way to tackle this whole thing. And they were like, well, they wouldn't hang out in the 50s. You're like, okay, well, Bobby Z, please, let's try and make it. They've also, it opens because it goes from dinosaurs and it goes from like slaves building the house, and it's kind of like they're happy to do it, and you're like, no.
I wish it had gone to the end of time.
Yeah. Well, this is the end of time COVID. That's right.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I'm just like, if you began with the comet, hypothesize how it all ends.
Yeah, give it a go. I kind of thought they were going to do a future thing because the family moved at the end, the black family moves in, and they've kind of got like all their moving boxes are like owned by like an Amazon sort of like substitute. I'm like, oh, are we like in this dystopian kind of like, but it's like we're okay with it. I'm like, that's interesting, but no, they didn't want to bother. It's just a nice town in 2022.
It's interesting that Tom Hanks has already covered a lot of this stuff in Cloud Atlas, like bigger scope, bigger story, so many different characters.
Tom Hanks is an actor. He doesn't get he's not writing this stuff.
But I just mean in the sense that I'm like, what is he? No, but I mean, he is somebody now that surely just does movies that he is like, that is interesting for me.
I guess.
And he must be like, this is an interesting script it covers all the time. And I'm like, but you were a part of another one that did all this better.
Well, he's already done Forrest Gump as well. So
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's done this.
I think everyone's done this. I don't know why, but I think it's a graphic novel. I would love to know the graphic novel. I assume it's the similar... just one frame, so that might work.
Yeah,
and that's maybe why they're in the boxes, because that's like what a comic is.
Yeah.
But what's Tom Hanks's like last real good film? I guess A Man Called Otto. Yeah, A Man Called Otto. Yeah, that was kind of the best.
He's excellent in Captain Phillips. That was a while ago.
That was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I guess he's a good... everyone hated him in Elvis, but I think he kind of nailed it.
Actually, he's pretty good in Elvis. He's fun in Elvis.
I think he's great.
He's doing like a Baz Luhrmann-asked performance in Elvis.
Yeah.
He's not doing, I chose to perform it this way. Baz Luhrmann was definitely like, you need to be up here at 11 the whole film.
You're called Mr. Snowman, and I've given you a nose which is so crooked and so hooked that you have to play it so comically evil. I kind of think he is good in Elvis. I think
he's good. I think he's doing the performance he's asked to do.
Historically, that man is pretty evil. It's like, oh, he would like abused Elvis and took all his money. So it's like, yeah, let's make him dreadful. What's Tom Hanks's like last period things?
He was in Asteroid City, which I liked. Elvis, Pinocchio, Bobby Z back again.
I think he just likes Bobby Z, and wouldn't you? He's got you an Oscar. You've been in some really good films of him.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood's quite good. I will give it that. And I did like The Post. We obviously did Inferno,
Yeah.
and like we love that trilogy.
I think he's well liked. I think he will coast, and I think he's still a movie star, and people will go see his films.
Your dad's favorite film of all time, Bridge of Spies.
Of course, no, my favorite film.
No, all dad's favorite films
yes,
of all
course,
time is
yes.
Bridge of Spies.
God, it should have won every Oscar
Until
that
they
year.
see this movie. And dads are going to be like, I did this.
This is
I
my
lived
life.
here.
I did Paul Bettany. I got very drunk quite often, and I kind of I owned a house by the end of it.
What did we think of the creative choice to have the camera move at the end? Because I loved that, and it made me wish they moved the camera the entire film.
I think that's I was like, wow, isn't this interesting? Because they're moving the camera forward when there's a poignant moment. I'm like, oh, but it's too little too late, but it is good. But you can't restrict me. Like if you like handcuff me to a radiator and then unlock me from the radiator, you go, huh, thank you. That's really nice. Like, you still locked me to the radiator for like an hour and a half, so I can't praise you for that.
I know, but you were taken on a cinematic generational journey when locked to it.
They just put Inception on like a little iPad, just out of reach, but it had Dutch subtitles on it, so it kind of, it was good, but slightly off.
Somebody watching Back to the Future in the movie in real time. They're like, Tom Hanks is like, look what's on TV, and then we just watch them watch that.
That'd be a much better film. If I could watch Bobby Z, I guess, directing someone watching his film for the first time, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I would love that.
He's like, now here is where you should love me more.
Yeah.
This is where you should be blown away. You should want to clap here. At the end of the movie, did you feel like clapping?
Fuck off. You called me earlier because you watched this earlier and you were like, oh, Oscar, it is just dreadful. But I gotta tell you, I have a lot to shout about. Also, I may have cried. What emotional moment made you weep?
I was sad when Paul Bettany had his little drinking thing that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And frankly, I thought it was really upsetting when they got given the house and she didn't want the house.
That was good.
And I thought that was really excellent and that moved me.
It's a shame that whole thing was so one-dimensional.
I know.
Because he's just like, oh, this is like an interesting story, but not something I've been sold on the film. Like, you've gone throughout all of time, it's like, let's focus on this sad little thing. You're like, oh no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We just the dinosaurs. It all seems a bit nothing in comparison. Carl, who would watch here?
Look, I don't think the movie's covering any new ground in terms of what it's trying to say about American history. I don't think it's doing anything new in the way of technology. And frankly, I don't think it's doing anything new in the way of any of these actors and what they're doing. And everything's feeling like a retread of Forrest Gump. I don't think anyone's really pushing themselves. And I think for the the gimmick of not moving the camera gets tired very quickly. And I don't think it really lends itself to anything. I don't know why this isn't a movie that scope couldn't be captured by going, this is everything that happened in a house and just doing the whole house. Or this is everything that happened in a room and simply just filming only the room. But keeping it steady, I think it was like a step too far. And it really does make you not latch onto any sort of emotion. The way that it's all stitched together really just like keeps you thrown to the back because all scenes only run for about 2 minutes before you jump into a new timeline. And sometimes they're just dancing. Like sometimes they're just like, oh, they're just dancing here for a minute. And you're like, why the fuck do I have to watch this? That's not doing anything. But Big Cardinal Sin, boring.
Yeah.
So boring.
Do you think this gimmick could work in any? I think maybe as a short it might work better, and just almost just cut a bunch of other stories. Honestly, just do one of them, and it could work a bit better.
I think it could only really work in movies that are maybe being like, this is happening in real time. So I think if for whatever reason maybe this would really work if, say, Reservoir Dogs was like a single shot in the corner, because that is such a great script of all those people turning on one another in a room.
What was that one that won the Oscar last year? The one next to the concentration camp?
Yes, The Zone of Interest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like they had like 8 cameras at different locations,
Yeah.
and they were like, hey, let's just show it like that.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that was very much like Bug on the Wall style,
Yes.
like it's just from this angle. Yeah, so I think it can be done. I just don't know why they've given themselves the constraints like this and then gone, let's get the scope of... They've gone for the largest scope in the most boring sort of depiction.
Yes. They're like, hey, here's Whole of Life. we're gonna focus on quite a sad.
Isn't
little bit.
life dull?
Yeah.
Is sort of the sentiment. And at the end I went, I guess it is.
Also,
Like-
I gotta tell you, the vibe is don't have kids. The two out of the most of the runtime is just, hey, kids really fucked up my life. I could have had a much nicer home. Didn't have to be here. Didn't have to be right here.
So I think who's it for? I think I was right. I really do think that like I bet apart from the Rotten Tomatoes where it's critics, like the audience scores on IMDb,
It's high.
Letterboxd are they're not high, but they're middling.
Yes.
Right? And that just means that I think that there is that sentimental crowd that enjoys old style film, romance, all that stuff.
I want to say it's so like pandering to like a boomer, just like wasn't.
It
It
is.
is funny that it ends at about 2003, which I think for a lot of those sort of people in that life is sort of like, well, that was the last time that life was good. And when I was of age, and now life has been shit, and it's confusing, and I don't get it, and therefore it's wrong, and I wish there was a better time.
Yeah. Sort of just covers what Bobby Z and Eric Roth have lived through.
Well, totally. It was 2003. It's like, I just got off my Castaway last paycheck. Alrighty, yo, let's make Polar Express. It's like, oh God, I'm so sorry, Bobby Z.
Yeah, so I think it's 100% for them. I think it's who they set out to make it for, and I think in the end that's the only people that can possibly like it.
Yeah.
Oscar, who do you think should watch this?
I really do think it's pandering. Like and that's fine. And to a little point, I feel like Forrest Gump got away with it much better, you know? Because it does pander, but it's still got so much around it that I still think when people look, because at the moment people are looking at it quite weird, you know, it's all going, oh, I don't know if it's aged that well. I still think it's aged well, but it's doing a lot of the pandering of sort of, hey, check out history, and we're going to look at like the bad side of history, but not really look too critically on it. I think it gives it enough that you can watch it and enjoy it. This one is just so isn't America great? And hey, sometimes family relationships don't work, but in the end, it all comes back together. And it just doesn't. I just don't think that's my ideology or belief. So I just think this film is just not for me. But I think for some people, they could really latch onto that. Carl, who do you think would watch this?
Oscar, I think if you don't understand the racial divide in America and you don't care to know, you should watch here. Oscar, who do you think should watch this?
I gotta tell you, if you love watching a play,
That's so perfect, isn't it?
Carl, who would watch this?
If your marriage has failed and you didn't pick up on the telltale signs, you should watch here. Oscar, who should watch this?
If you get motion sick, you should watch here. Carl, who should watch here?
If you love The Social Network and thought, hey, maybe they should make a Lazy Boy couch biopic, this is for you. Oscar, who would watch this?
Carl, I gotta tell you, if you're on the fence about having a kid, hey, watch this. You'll get a very distinct side you'll be told not to do. Carl, do you have a palate cleanser? What have you been watching? What have you been watching? What do you want to talk about?
Oscar, I was sick the other day, and I thought when I was just laying on the couch, I would dive into a movie I hadn't seen in a while, which was Kingsman's Secret Service.
Which one's that one? Is that the second?
It's the first one.
Oh, it's the first one.
Yeah. And I loved it.
Yeah, nice.
I had not seen it in many years. I just thought it was energetic and fun, and I like a real star-making turn for Taron Egerton, and Samuel Jackson's just really goofy in it,
He's
and the
cheeky,
violence is really great, and Colin Firth is excellent. The action sequences are really energetic. Was really like fresh air for me. And I just loved it so much.
Can I jump in? Because I had this thing where the ending is like ends on a weird note.
It's bad.
Now, because I remember thinking that. I remember talking to a 70-year-old woman who said, I love that movie. Such a shame about the anal joke at the end. And I was like, damn, it really resonated with people.
There's really no point to it.
Yeah.
It's a real shame that they do that. And then I think due to the backlash of it, because it isn't a good joke, they then are like, those two are a couple in the next film when they just shouldn't be. But I think they're like, no, see, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because they stayed together.
Yeah.
But then the second one is, so basically what I'm trying to say is I enjoyed that so much, I decided to jump into the second one.
I feel like such like a little like kid, but God, when Freebird plays and they fight in the church, it makes me feel
great.
good. That's great.
The stakes are great in it too.
Yeah.
But the second one is, a horrible disaster.
It is. If I remember correctly, they bring Colin Firth back, and is Julianne Moore the villain?
Yeah, she's having fun.
Yes.
There's like a lot of Elton John stuff in it. And
Oh yeah,
it's
They were
all to
chuffed
do
they
with
got
like
him.
legal, like she's poisoned all drugs, and everybody that's
Yes.
used drugs is going to die. And
Yeah.
I've realized why I don't think that movie works,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that second movie is simply a pretty dull action adventure film. When the first one is a spy espionage movie,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I don't know why the second one is not
There's a-
within the spy genre.
There's a lot of weird little tidbits. I remember Channing Tatum, just for the trailer, I assume, gets
Yeah.
the whole thing. 'Cause, like, here's the American side of things. Maybe they're trying to do a spin-off for that one. I remember that a lot of the films set at that like diner.
Yeah,
Where is
that
that?
like big CGI diner out
Yes.
in the forest? It's all just a mess.
Yeah.
It's really unenjoyable, and they replay some of the beats, and they're not fun. It is just horrible. And I will not watch the third one.
Which one's the third one?
That's the one with Ralph Fiennes.
And Reese Fiennes is what's it called? The Russian guy.
Rasputin.
Yeah, huge.
And that's like a little bit more.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, that one's a mess as
Yeah.
well. I just don't. It's weird that they were like, we know exactly what this is, and we're nailing it.
Yeah.
In the
Immediately dropped
first
the ball.
Kingsman, yeah, and then immediately dropped the ball. And then Matthew Vaughn did that Argyle movie recently, and I'm like, this guy is really he's unable to do.
Yeah, he can't capture.
He can't capture it. He's really struggling.
What else did he do? I feel like he did something. Did he do Kick-Ass?
Yeah, he did Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is good. From memory, I haven't seen Kick-Ass in a long time. He's only done 8 movies. He did Layer Cake, which is good. Stardust, which I like. Kick-Ass, which I like. And X-Men First Class, which I like. And then Kingsman, which I love. And then since Kingsman, he's done another 2 Kingsman movies, and then Argyle, which at the end he goes, "This is a part of the Kingsman universe."
Whoa.
And so I'm just like, so you've just
Damn.
So I'm like, you've just done Kingsman movies for 4 straight films. Aren't you tired?
God. Have those last 2 made money, right? Surely. Maybe not the Rasputin one, but the second Kingsman made a lot of money, I remember.
No, I made less than the first.
Whoa,
Yeah.
hectic.
I think bad word of mouth. Like, it's
Yeah.
not very good.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Oscar, what are we watching next week?
Carl, it is the silly season. I mean, we've done a bit of Bobby, we've done a bit of Red One. I think we do need to get a classic under our belt. Sequel. Classic sequel. Carl, we're jumping into a beloved sequel. It's Home Alone 2.
That's right. Macaulay Culkin, Joe Pesci, the others.
They got them all.
We've got them all.
Thanks for listening.